And you've been hustling it since 20 years, right? I mean, you have been sales.
Yeah.
What made you decide, like, that's what I'm going to do?
So it was just one of those things. I was at college getting ready for the summer, and I was like, all right, what am I going to do for the summer? And I got a flyer. It was like, come and sell timeshares door to door. I'm like, I don't know. Okay, we're going to Colorado. That sounds kind of fun. So we went out there, and it was it didn't really work. But then we saw these guys that were doing Dish door to door. And so we're like, hey, are you guys making money? They're like, yeah, we're making money. I'm like, okay, we're going to join you guys. And so I did that, and it was actually a great summer. I got enough to buy a car. That was my goals. I wanted to be able to buy a car because at college, I didn't have one yet. And then, so I did that for 2 years, and then I got back from that second summer, and I had guys like, hey, dude, if you're liking this door-to-door thing, you need to look into doing security systems. And so I met with a couple companies and then ended up going out with a company called Apex, which later became Vivint. But did really well with them and ended up spending 9 years doing the door-to-door thing with them all over the country, doing a different market each summer. And then in 2013, by then we started having kids. And I was like, I don't want to, our oldest was going into, I think he was kindergarten or something, but it's like, I don't want to keep pulling him out of school to go do this travel thing. We need to find something. So you guys
would have all gone together? Even when
family goes to every place, which is cool, right?
Yeah.
You get to kind of experience different parts of the country. We lived in Boston for a summer. That was really cool. And, Little Rock and Orlando and Indianapolis and Sacramento and Denver, like Houston. We went to all these different places over the years. It's really cool. There's not too many opportunities in life that you get to see different places for a short amount of time, and just kind of experience different cultures and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. But like I said, making the kids have to uproot every year I could see that was uncomfortable for them. And I didn't want to keep doing that. I knew that wasn't like long-term what I wanted. And so a couple of my buddies that had been doing alarms with me, they're like, hey, you need to start looking into solar. Like solar, it's a year-round thing. It's more referral-based. It's a very professional sale. Obviously, you can get paid more doing it. And so I was looking for Vivint because they were opening up Vivint Solar at the time, but they weren't doing it in Arizona, which is where we were living. But Solar City was here, and they wanted to start a direct sales program, right? They wanted to establish this door-to-door thing. And so I hired on as one of the first door-to-door reps in Solar City, the first one in Arizona anyway. And then we ended up growing that thing, and it became a national channel for them and ended up doing about 50% of their business until Tesla bought Solar City. And then Elon said, door-to-door doesn't fit our brand. We're axing it.
Wow. So
he got rid of that. So it was actually right before that happened, though, was when I left Solar City and we started Fusion. That was
so that's all commission, or for the most part, that's commission-based stuff, right?
100%.
So how do you deal with that? Because that's ups and downs. So income, budget. I guess you've always been used to it since college, but is your wife used to it? Sometimes
she is, right? Luckily for me, I think I'm kind of wired for it. The idea of getting an hourly at a set cap versus having an uncapped rate, I guess I'm just competitive enough and I'm just maybe tenacious enough where I was just never interested in the safe route. And since I did well enough those first few summers, I guess I just had enough confidence. It's like, if I go out there, I'm going to put in, X amount of effort and I'm going to get this kind of return on it. So I've never been afraid of it at all, but I do recognize, having worked with, 5,000 people over the last 20 years, the job is definitely not for every personality. There's just certain people that can't, they're just not wired that way.
That's just sales in general, not just solar. It's all sales.
It is sales it is sales in general, but particularly the commission only sales, right? Because a lot of guys that will come work for us now or that apply, it's like, no, I got a base, right? And I'm like, sorry, that not in this position. You don't. We have other positions that do have a base, but if you're wanting to hit these home runs and make these monster commissions, this is, you eat what you kill.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are like, that's not
for me.
Not for me.
How do you find the good ones? Because if you go on Indeed or go anywhere to look for a job, it's all solar now. So how do you break through that noise?
And that's funny too, because we have recruiting meetings every single week, and we use Indeed and some of these other platforms. But most of the people that come in on that, they're used to an hourly job, and so when they come in and they're like, wait, so there's no base on this thing. I got to figure this out. I got to create my own leads, and I got to figure out how to sell and present if I want to make this kind of money. So it can be a turnoff for a lot of people there. So to find good people, usually it's going to be just through networking. It's finding guys that are doing well in the company. It's like, who do you know that's like you that wants to come and do this? And they'll think of their buddies, be like, hey, I know another guy that hustles, and he'll recruit his buddy. But it's pretty rare that we're going to find somebody through traditional like job searches or job ads that's going to be really good at this job. Not to say it doesn't happen, but a lot of times it's either people coming to us because they hear about us, It's
or
like
referral from somebody.
or referral from somebody.
It's slim to none the people that can go out and hunt and eat what they kill, like you said. So this episode of Casita Conversations is brought to you by Tropics Collective. Tropics uses only the highest quality Delta-9 and THC ingredients to bring you the very best of what cannabis has to offer. It's Farm Bill compliant, which means it's legal in all 50 states for everyone. Give it a try today, and if you use our promo code, you'll save 15% on your entire first order. Go to tropicscollective.com and use the promo code CASITA to get your discount today. Tropics Collective is defining the art of cannabis. How old are your kids?
Oldest is 15.
Okay,
so he's a sophomore.
And then
youngest just went into kindergarten. He's 5.
Okay, awesome. That's quite the spread. Yeah. So how much of that do you think is the school system? When they come out of the school system going, I want a salary or an hourly job. And when I go to apply and there's no salary and there's no hourly, I'm not interested. What is that? What ingrains that in the kids' heads nowadays?
What a great question. I don't know how much I would say is the school system. At least when I was in school, I was never taught anything about a job. It was like we learned all the regular subjects. I took an econ class, and that was probably as close as I ever got to finance, at least through high school. To me, I think the difference is the home life. I think it's what the parents expect having kids grow up. I grew up in a home where it was like, we were middle income, like we weren't rich, but we never wanted for anything. But my parents were like, hey, if you want Jordans, like you're going to have to earn at least half of it. And so from a young age, I'm like, okay, well then I need to figure out how to earn money.
What can I do? Yeah.
And it wasn't, I need to go find an hourly job to earn that. It's like, how can I get money to do that? I remember in elementary school going door to door selling wrapping paper, things like that. And so I think a lot of it is your upbringing and the expectation that your parents give you of like, you are responsible to make this happen. And obviously, teenagers have hourly jobs, and I had those going, when I was a kid as well. But it was like, I always feel like I'm capped. This is as much as I can earn. This is as much somebody's going to be willing to pay me to sell Indianapolis Star newspaper over the phone, right? It's just, it is what it is. And so I think just that principle being taught, like, if you want it, you're going to have to figure out how to go out and earn it. That's kind of what drove at least me to do something maybe higher risk. And I think going back to your question here is, most kids coming out of high school these days, a lot of them don't get jobs. A lot of them aren't required by their parents to earn anything. They're just, here's your allowance. You want an Xbox, we'll get one for you. You want an iPad, we'll get one for you. It's like, how many kids do you know that doesn't have an iPad that wasn't just given to them? I would have never got an iPad growing up. I would have had to save for a year to get that. And it would have meant a lot more to me, right? Because I would have had to earn for it. But I think that we live in such an on-demand culture right now. People just expect, what are you going to give me? How much is coming free? What's the base salary on this? And then I'll do that. And then if I'm happy with that, then I'll give you some value in return, and maybe start earning some commissions on top of that.
So generational, because my parents were the same way. Again, we didn't want for anything either, but I wouldn't say we were wealthy by any means. Same thing though. I was a big stamp collector back in the day. So to get the first stamp album, you had to save, and I had a newspaper that I think I was printing it off of my dad's copier and going out to the Century 21 real estate guy and taking the ad in, for probably $5, $10, whatever that was. And then there was a decade after that. So my folks are in their 70s. I don't know how your folks are, but then there was a decade or two after that where the parents are in their late 50s, early 60s, right before us. Now we're the next one, right? But right before us, I think is exactly what you just said, which they treated that next generation, unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe that wasn't me and you, but it was the ones right below us that got that, what do you want? Here you go. And it still get it to this day. I think the number of 25-year-olds living with their parents is staggering to me. Yeah. Like, can you imagine still doing that?
It is. So the question is, it's like, where did we lose the resiliency? Where did we lose? We talk a lot about grit. Like, where did that get lost? And I've been scratching my head over it because I've seen it change just even in my adulthood. I take a look at the guys that I started knocking doors with 20 years ago to the guys today. And within that last 20 years, within those 2 decades, it's been a complete shift. And it's like, well, what kind of technologies come out in the last 20 years? And to me, what I think it is I go back to that on-demand culture. You had streaming come out, both with music and then with TV and movies and everything. It's like, nobody has to wait for anything ever anymore. Whatever you want, here it comes. And then even if you don't want the next thing, it's going to put itself right in front of you anyway, right? And it's just this is what I expect on this immediate cadence. And so there's no patience. There's no working for gratification. It's just all taken for granted and expected. And I think it completely changes the way that people think about how life ought to be for them.
And it flows right into the job, right into the employer. And
right.
So you're in charge of all the sales folks in your company, actually most of the company. How much now it's gone from maybe not even just losing the grit, but now it's gone to this. Have you heard of this lazy girl job?
Tell me about it.
Hassan showed it to me on TikTok, and it's a girl that was proud of having 3 or 4 different jobs that were all remote, and none of the jobs knew what she was doing. And so the lazy girl job, and it's not gender specific, it applies to men too, trust me, because I've had a couple of these employees recently. The lazy girl job is, can I get a remote position that I can work an hour a day and everyone will think I'm doing my job and get by, and now I can go live life the way I want to live life. So it's gone from like, not only is there no more grit, it's like kids are actively looking for how not to work and make money, and then get a second job doing that, and then a third job. I just read an article in Forbes about one guy that had 4 jobs, wasn't ashamed of it. He said, hey, listen, I can do, but he was a hustler. You know, he's like, I'm still working 50 hours a week, but I'm putting it in with 4 different companies, and I'm making $400,000 a year because they're each giving me salaries and benefits. But the idea that you could find a job remotely after COVID, I think changed a lot of that stuff.
Sure.
And only work an hour a day and then go, mess around the rest of the day. That is a mindset that I will never understand, but it's prevalent now.
And it's dangerous.
It's super dangerous.
What's going to happen in society? The more you get everybody with that kind of mentality, what happens? Nothing good. Nothing good.
So how do you coach that when you have an employee that you see going down that path? Maybe not that extreme, but you see a guy that you thought, or a girl that you thought had grit when you hired them, obviously, and then 30 days into it, you're like, oh, they're not picking the phone up. They're missing the meeting.
Yeah, great question. For us, we've got a set of core values that we live by, and so we'll interview people based on those core values. Ours is family first, add value, and tenacious grit's actually the third one. And so when we hire somebody, it's like, these are the values that we expect from everybody that's going to be part of the family here. Like, we're going to treat you like family. You want us to, we want you to be treated like family as well. We want you to add value and make an impact wherever you're at. We want you to have grit, and we want you to be able to make things happen without excuse. Whatever happens, we want you to figure out a way to make, to be successful, and all the other things that go on with those different traits. And if it doesn't work out, we're going to go back to these traits again, and this is what we're going to be able to retain or promote you based on, is these values. And so usually if somebody's not working out, it's almost kind of like they just fire themselves. They just be like, yeah, you guys is, the culture here is just not for me. Like I need something that's not quite so demanding, or that's not quite so high achieving. They won't use those words, but that's where they're
looking for.
Yeah.
They're looking for the hour a day job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I go back, it's like, where does that come from? So much of that social media. Social media, it's got its merits. There's a lot of cool ways that you can connect and put yourself out there, but man, is it also dangerous. You look at some famous TikToker or YouTuber that's making millions of dollars, and these poor kids are ignorant. They think, oh yeah, if I just do the same thing, I can make a video a day and become a millionaire. Mm-hmm. And that's the hour a day job. Is the expectation is completely, it's just wrong. There's not that there's a million YouTubers and one of them's a millionaire, right? And the kids are going to think the same thing. Just like when we were little, we thought if we played basketball in the driveway, we'd end up being the next Michael Jordan.
Yep.
Reality ended up killing that. The problem is with social media, the reality never kills that because people live in it nonstop. It's not like a hobby or anything. It's like people are on their phones 10 hours a day, constantly consuming all of this stuff, and it's just distorting what reality actually can be or is.
Yeah, you have kids, so you've heard of Mr.Beast.
Sure.
I would assume.
Yeah.
I listened to an interview with him, and it's really interesting because he's one of those people that you watch and you go, I could do that. He's commenting on a video game, or he's put together some kind of cool thing. But when you listen to his interview, it's thousands and thousands of hours of him studying YouTube, studying how to put videos together, A/B testing things, and you never see any of that. You see the 60-second clip that made him what he is. And so our kids, are you worried about? I'm scared as hell about that with my kids, because that's what they see.
It is, and it's, I go to the knee-jerk reaction every time I see them watch. I'm like, get YouTube off. If you guys want to watch something, watch a show that has a plot and a message, and then go outside and play or something like that. So I just try to get them to resist that, but I try to help them understand. It's like, hey, just so you understand, like, this is all made up, you guys. Like, this is a persona that somebody's putting on, and it's very calculated, a lot of it. Like, this isn't something that just accidentally happens. Like, they've put in a lot of thought. This is an actual business for a lot of people. It's not, they just got together with their friends, created a video, and it went viral. I guess that does happen.
Sure.
But for the people that have channels and big followers, like, there's strategy and there's marketing behind that.
People behind it.
It's not something that's just going to accidentally happen just because you want it to.
You said something really interesting. You said when we were kids, you could go outside, play ball, and think you're going to be Michael Jordan. That was our heroes. People like Michael Jordan, people that overly achieved. John Wayne was the generation before us, like the real manly men. The heroes now are the TikTok stars.
Yeah.
And how do you get your kids to go, no, that's not who you're supposed to pattern yourself after, because A, most of it's not real, but B, even if it kind of was real, I'm not raising you to go pull pranks on people and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. And right, if that's the lane you found yourself in and you made millions of dollars in, great. But I don't want my kids looking at that hero. Where are the other heroes?
Dude, it's such a funny thing. My sophomore, I mentioned I have a sophomore, he'll watch YouTube videos of people playing video games. I'm like, dude, you're not even playing the game. And he's like, well, Dad, what difference is it if I'm watching somebody else play the game? You watch sports and you're watching other people play the game. What are you doing? I'm like, good point, and then I'm sitting there trying to think about, like, what's the merit, like, in sports versus watching somebody play video games? Mm-hmm. What's the merit in real life hero action, making things happen versus this online virtual world? And I think that's the difference. Like, what is the purpose behind it? What are you really trying to do? Because I think that there's a lot of really good people out there. There's plenty of channels that I'm sure both of us follow where the person behind that page is doing incredible things. They could be a motivational person. They could be, promoting incredible causes and raising money and awareness to help people in the real world. But I think what we have to understand is, like, that virtual world needs to be something that is a tool to help the real world and people in real life, not just in this, this virtual space. And so we're looking for heroes. I don't know if I want to say this is where you have to find them, but it's like, what is their purpose and what are they trying to accomplish? And let's follow people that have ideals that are really trying to impact others for good.
In the real world, making a difference in the real world. And then that kind of leads you down the rabbit hole, which is a very deep rabbit hole of, well, what happens if the metaverse becomes the real world to all of us, and we all are sitting in couches?
You're paying rent you're paying for advertising and this stuff. It's just like, wow.
They were selling real estate for some big dollars back then.
Yeah.
If you wanted to live next to Snoop, I think you could have bought $1 million piece, but it's not real.
It's not real.
Is it just a symptom of kids or this generation maybe right below us that are just mind numbed to everything because of all the social media, because of the instant access? I hate to bring in pharmaceuticals, but because of the drugs that all the kids are on. I mean, you go back and you look at our generation in school, there was no such thing as a peanut allergy, and now half of kindergartners are on ADHD medication. So are we just mind numbing them into this? Is this some master plan to do that, to end them up all on the couch in a metaverse headset?
I hope it's not a plan. I hope that there's not some evil, villain that's concocting this whole thing. But boy, the fact that it is happening in mass across the country and probably across the world, it does seem fairly calculated, which is very scary and sad. And so I think as parents, we really need to say, what is it that we want for our families? What is it that we want for our kids? How do we recognize that onslaught of negativity or things that are not going to be useful and helpful in life, and put them in situations and opportunities to help them avoid that and train their brains to see through that stuff? That's the other tough thing. It's they know what they know, right? They're just seeing what's in front of them. They're just accepting it as reality and accepting it as norm. They have to have leaders point that out. This isn't right, or this isn't normal, or this isn't, healthy. And we've got to be there for them. This summer, we were up in Utah for a family reunion. We were in these kind of rural towns in a place called Ephraim, Utah, and Manti, Utah. I'd never been there before, but we found this kind of ranch area where our families all joined together, and we each in our kind of own bungalow, and there was this central house where we got together for meals and stuff. But it was a week of unplugged, right? People had their cell phones, I guess. But the kids were all together running in beautiful weather. It was light till 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, this was my childhood. And I could see my kids, like, these lights turning on, like, Dad, this is so much fun. Like, it's 9:30 and we're still outside playing around. I'm like, guys, this is what childhood should be. Like, this is what I'm trying to promote to you, that this is what life can be. And it's hard to say that there's a right or a wrong, but for those of us that have experienced what we think the right way is, I don't know how to say anything else, but it really does feel like a better way of living.
And then how do you bring that back to Arizona, Gilbert?
Right.
I mean, almost impossible, right?
Yeah.
And then I think when I'm hearing you saying that, I'm thinking my kids and your kids are going the same thing we probably said to Grandpa when he told us about the good old days. Went like, come on, Gramps, really?
Yeah.
Like, this is the best time. Your time was good too, but our kids are telling us that too. How much does faith play a role in it for you?
For me, I'd say it's number one. All of my personal values and all the values that our family goes by is what we believe in the gospel. And
was that given to you by your parents?
Yeah, it
or that
was.
started with you?
Yeah, I grew up in a very religious home as well, and my wife as well. And so when we got married, that was part of our kind of like relationship. Is like, this is the kind of home that we want to bring the kids up in, with good Christian values, and we want to go to church every week, and we want to have daily family prayer, and we want to have family meals, and we want to have family time, and we want to, do these things that are going to be able to promote these kind of principles that we believe are eternal and are going to lead to the most likelihood of having success in life.
Did you ever question it? I always wonder, I always ask myself, I'm fairly conservative. I'm a Christian, non-denominational. I was born and raised that way. My parents were that way too. So am I that way just because they were? And I've been going through this thing over the last, I would say probably maybe decade and a half, where did I believe all of these things? Do I believe what I believe just because that's what they believed?
Yeah.
And so now that's what I believed. And do I want my kids to just believe what I believe because I believe what I believe and that's what they're going to believe? Or do you stop and go, well, maybe I'm not a conservative Republican in my core. Maybe there are some things I'm a little more liberal with, or maybe there aren't. But do you stop and question that ever along the journey?
For me, I think one of the things that was instilled for me at a young age, both by church leaders or, youth leaders or even my parents, it was like, we're going to teach you from the scriptures. We're going to teach you what these principles are, but none of it matters. If you don't establish your own personal relationship with God, then you're going to eventually lose it. You cannot rely on somebody else's light for forever. You can do it as a kid. You can see your parents and you can look at their example. You can see the blessings that come to their lives from living certain ways and follow that. And just as a practical application of living an honest, hardworking life, you're going to end up just having a pretty normal, good, substantial life. But when you practice principles of forgiveness and mercy and faith and prayer, like, there's going to be certain things that you'll see. And when you realize that that's happening to you on an individual basis outside of anybody else, now there's this personal, what we call a testimony, right? And it's, you have this personal experience that you can say, this is what I've experienced. This is what I want to share with you, but you need to go have that same experience yourself. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that we try to do with our kids is like, guys, we're going to study the scriptures, and here we're reading Romans right now, right? Read this, but I need you to go apply and learn about grace yourself. Mm. You need to go ask God for forgiveness of your own sins and feel that and receive that on your own. Sorry if we get too religious here.
Yeah, no, that's good.
But it's like, that message there is like, you've got to receive it on your own. I'll kind of put the brakes on there, but it's like, it has to be their own individual experience. Otherwise, yes, it's very easy to doubt for any billion different reasons.
It's no different than anything you teach your kids, right? Where you don't say, hey, don't touch the stove because it's hot. No, don't touch the stove because I say don't touch the stove. You don't touch the stove because if you do it, you're going to get injured, right? And giving them that thorough, like, don't doing it just because dad says you got to do it or because mom did it that way. And I want my kids to think outside of my own box because maybe I'm missing something too.
Sure. But
I want them to understand why I think so that they can go back and process it and go, okay, that one makes sense. But if I look at it from this angle, now my kids, I have 3 older boys and then I have 2 younger. So the 2 youngers maybe aren't at that level of, perceiving things yet. But I want them to know that when dad says something, they can go, okay, does it make sense as to why? And if it doesn't, can I ask him to make that more clear for me? And if it still doesn't make sense, I got to go out on my own, like you said, and find out what really makes sense there. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'd be remiss to say that I don't, you know, I hope that they kind of take my values too. You know, you kind of want them to take your values because it's worked out for you, you know, this far.
That's the tough part, though, is you also have to be willing to respect that everybody's got their agency to choose, right? Everybody's got their ability to make those choices. And it's like, I'm going to do my best to teach you the principles. I'm going to try to model those principles and show you why it's a good thing. Hopefully you can get your own experience with that, and it's going to lead you to a long and happy life with it. And I also have to accept that you may choose something else. Does faith play any part in your business world? It does, in so much, I'd say Judeo-Christian ethics. You know, we want to, and kind of going back to our core values again, we call it the family first principle, where we, you know, integrity and honesty and those things that we would include in our faith, in our belief, we're going to be able to funnel. We want to be able to have as a major impact on the things, the way that we make our you know, our business policies are going to be according to those kind of
And what does that
principles.
actually? So I've sat in plenty of boardrooms and designed core values as well. What does it actually mean when you say family first? Like, how does that, when someone hears that, they might have a tendency to go, sure, everybody says that.
Yeah, so the first one is basically the phrase that kind of describes that. If you're not winning at work, or if you're not winning at home, you're not winning at work. And so everything that we do, it needs to be with the focus of, we're trying to create something special at work and be able to support ourselves for a much higher purpose, and that's what we talk about at home with our kids and with our spouses. We talk, and that's, you know, having a balance in life. We can work our tails off and work how many hours you want, but if you're sacrificing the relationship with your most important people in your life, then what's it all for?
It eventually crumbles, right? There's
It
no
does.
foundation.
It does.
What gets you going again? So, especially in the sales position, right? Now I know you're not doing direct sales as much as you used to, but you used to do it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And even in this position now. So when you hit a brick wall, which we all do at certain points in the career or certain points even in the day, you hit a brick wall. What do you do?
A lot of it's, for me, I'm very goal driven. And so I'll go back and say, okay, this is what we're trying to accomplish. What's in the way? What are the solutions to get around it? So it's just going back to solutions. A lot of times I think people run into that brick wall and they're like, well, that hurt. Let's just try to run in through it again and again and again, or just sit down on the stump and be like, well, nothing's working, so I'm just going to quit. For me, that's just not a way that I operate. It's like, okay, here's this wall. How do we figure out a way around it, over it, under it? Like, let's get through this, because there's something on the other side that we're all trying to get to.
So you go back to fundamentals. So you maybe strip emotion out, go, all right, here's what the game plan was, and just fundamentally hit it knock by knock.
Yep. And look, if something needs to change, okay. If there's that wall is just insurmountable, okay, well, let's find another path where we can get somewhere close to where we want to get to. But yeah, like again, that third value of tenacious grit, like we're gonna fight as much as we can.
Don't stop
to get it.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't stop.
Yeah.
And now you said you were traveling quite a bit. Now you're not. But I think one of your goals is to go nationwide.
Yeah.
So you're ready to travel again?
Yeah, and it's a lot, right? Because we're in Texas now, and so I've been going back and forth a little bit there, and it's remind me, it's like that's a sacrifice, right? When it's like, okay, kids, I'm going to be gone for a couple days this week. You know, sometimes you end up missing things when that kind of stuff happens, and so there has to remain that balance of, you know, we want to build this market, and I want to be a father first, and so I have to make sure that I'm working my schedule well and trying to get as short of trips as I can and be as effective as I can while I'm out there. If there's opportunities to have people, family travel with me, I haven't done it enough yet where I know completely how that's all going to play out, but that'll definitely be a challenge where I'm going to probably end up having to make decisions and make sure that I'm doing really good hiring locally, that they can run things independently, so that I don't have to be there and have a constant hand on everything.
And this is a ground up kind of a situation, right? So you're Fusion Power.
Right.
And before you, there was none of this operations like there is today.
Correct.
So this nationwide split thing that you're trying to do is you, right?
Yeah, it's, yes. Yeah.
What kind of pressure is that? Like, what's the burden of, I mean, not only do you have this whole office in Arizona counting on you, right, to be successful, because if you blow up over here, it could affect your Arizona people. But now you have people in other states that are counting on you and their families. Do you feel that as a burden, or?
I do, but it's energizing. To me, it's exciting. Like I feel like we've got such a great culture and such a great platform and such great operations here. I'm like, we've done it. We've proven the model here. Let's go duplicate it in these other markets. So I feel very excited about it. We open up Texas. We're in Northern California, but we want to get in probably 6 or 7 different states in the next 3 to 4 years is kind of our goal.
And that juices you up, like
gets me super excited.
ready to go.
But there's a lot of risk with it, right? Again, there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of pressure on that. There's a lot that you need to make happen. Our model, we have both, reps that work internal with us, and then we have, sales dealers and their organizations. But it's two very different sales channels that we have to kind of marry together and make sure that we're supporting both groups in the way that they need to be supported, and creating those operations, making sure that we have investment ready to build out and provide personnel, and making sure that cash flows are there. There's just so much involved with that. So I work very, very close with our COO and with our CEO to make sure that we're planning and making good steps from a timetable and from like how much can we chew off at any given time before we really want to try to, start pushing the accelerator.
When did you get to the point with the owner of the company that said to you, or that you felt that you had full trust of them, you had earned that full trust? Because that doesn't happen.
Well, I have it because I am one of the owners. So I didn't have to do that. But again, it's like I have to trust myself and say, if I can't do it, then I need to be willing to hire somebody else out to do that. And so
many people can't get those blind spots, though. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it sounds like you're saying when you realize you have a blind spot, you shop that to someone or when you realize you have a weakness, I think that's a better word, you shop that to someone internally that doesn't have that weakness. How do you identify that weakness? I don't think anybody wants to admit that they've got a weakness or they can't do something well.
And I'll say I'm pretty bad at recognizing that, because I'm the type that's like, I just want to be able to fix everything myself. So that's probably one of my biggest weaknesses, is that I don't delegate as much as I should. So when I work with my business coach, he's like, what are you doing right now that somebody else could be doing to free you up with more time to do something that's going to be more effective in building and getting to that goal that you're trying to get right now? So that thought's been something that I've been working on a lot this year, of like, okay, I can push this to this person, or this to this person. And it's great because now I can develop more trust in other people. There's risk with it though, right? Because you have, as the owner, it's like, I care about it probably more than most people would, other people in the company, not necessarily, but I have the highest risk, so I kind of have to. And so if there's something important that needs to be done, all right, do I want to have somebody else do it, or should I just do it the way that I think it really needs to get done? And so that's always going to be a challenge. But if I keep doing that nonstop, there's going to be a point where we can't grow, because I can only spread myself so thin before I start making mistakes all across the board.
And how long have you had a business coach?
Just this year, actually.
So you got to a point where I think most people would have considered themselves successful, and then you went, and I got to go another level.
Yeah, we got to the level where, like, hey, we've done a phenomenal job, but if we're going to get to this next level, like, we're pretty like spread thin on where we're at, just hours from an hours in the day standpoint. I'm like, I need to have somebody that's gone far above and beyond. My business coach used to be the COO of Babies R Us back in the day, and so he's been helping me, just asking just good questions, like helping me to recognize different things. And it's just been there hasn't been anything like totally groundbreaking that's changed everything for me, but he's just brought little things to light where I'm like, okay, sweet, we can change this, we can add this, here's another program that we can put into place. Just these little things that I probably wouldn't have seen, or it would have taken me longer to see if I didn't have somebody kind of helping me think through things.
And even getting that coach is a recognition of weakness, right? And when you think about all the top performers, I mean, for God's sakes, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, they all had coaches. Every one of them has a coach. Still to this day, they have coaches. But just the idea of getting that coach, I don't think very few people that aren't at that elite level ever consider even getting a coach, because the first thing you'd have to admit to yourself is there's room for improvement.
Yeah.
And that might mess with the human psyche just a little bit. But once you do that and you understand there's always room for improvement, then that business coach can just take you to another level.
Sure. And it's being able to look at it as an investment, because a lot of times it's like, oh, it's expensive and I don't have the time to do it. But it's like, how much more can you get out of yourself if you do?
Squeeze the juice.
If you do, exactly.
Well, it sounds like you're on a trajectory that your company will be very happy in a couple of years, and nationwide, all over the place, flying around, taking your family back on those trips.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
You bet.
Now, if somebody wants to come work for you, where do they go?
So we are locally in Arizona. We're down in Chandler. We're off of Chandler and Kyrene. Fusion Power is the name of our company. You can look us up at fusionpowerco.com. You can find us on social media. Just tag somebody, send a message, and we'll send you info and come down and let's meet one-on-one. When we meet with people, like I said, we're going to go through our values as a company, what it is that we want to accomplish, what the opportunity is there for everybody that wants to come and do solar with us. We've built something really special, and I'm excited about it. And we are enthusiastic to work with good, like-minded people that want to grow and give themselves a really cool opportunity.
Do they get exposure to you when they come on board?
Yeah, we're pretty hands-on, and so me being over sales, I'm going to be running the weekly correlation meetings and part of the training, sales competitions, weekly emails. It's just most everything kind of funnels through.
So they'll get to interact with you,
for sure,
which is kind of like getting a business coach for them, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope that I can add that kind of value to people. And I'll tell you, one of the most fulfilling things for me in my position is having a rep come in and just spilling their guts to me, right? There's people go through tough stuff, and they'll come in and talk about whether their marriage is on the rocks or a kid is having some trouble, or maybe they're just in financial trouble or there's health issues, whatever it is. But just to be there as a friend to help them walk through different things. I mean, I've had some of the greatest, most fulfilling experiences ever just because of my position where I can sit down with people and talk with them and just give them a big hug at the end. It's special. And I feel really lucky to be in that position to be able to help people and share things that I've learned, and hopefully it helps them
and
as
you
well.
don't get that at very many companies.
I don't know.
No.
I don't
know.
know.
I'm telling you, you don't. Right? So that's great. I love that. What's the hardest thing you've ever been through?
What's the hardest thing I've ever been through? I'd say just learning how to navigate marriage. Like my wife and I, we have a fun, great relationship. We're hitting our 18th anniversary in 2 weeks. So super excited about that. But every day, I mean, you're married, and so you know how it is. It's just you have two different people with different different things that they want and different ways of doing things. And so constantly just stretching and trying to create and make a relationship work. It's the most fulfilling thing in the world, and at the same time, it's hard. And I think that's how most things in life are, right? The best and most rewarding things are going to come from the struggle that comes from it. So honey, if you're watching this, I don't want you to think that our marriage is the hardest thing, but it's the most rewarding challenge that I have in life.
And it's a nonstop challenge too, because the people you were 18 years ago are totally
Changed.
different.
Yeah.
It's almost like you've got to refigure out your relationship every couple of years, because as you slowly, migrate to this new person you're becoming, if the other person doesn't migrate with you, or they migrate a different direction, and you've got to come back together and bring all that. It's nonstop.
It is.
Yeah, great answer. All right, so we'll stick with family. We'll end here.
Okay.
If this is the last thing after that your wife and kids ever heard you say, and you don't make it home, what would it be?
I'll see you again. I'd say I love you, and I can't wait to see you again on the other side.
That's awesome. Simple and powerful. Awesome. Thank you, Jared. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Looking forward to see you successful in the future years.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. See you, everybody. Bye. Acrylic Financial Incorporated is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed by those on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Acrylic Financial. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance, and some guests may have been paid a fee to be interviewed for this show.